Hi guys, so I bought this Pentair SuperFlo pump, and I just got this installed plumbing wise. So all the plumber had to do was just connect this end, connect the other end. It already comes with this coupling, so he just had to cut the old motor off and connect the new pipe in right from here, top, and then this side. But the main thing on this pump is the wiring. So before I had a standard single speed pump. This one is of course a variable speed one. So end up picking this one, the SuperFlo. And just want to show you guys quickly how I did the wiring. So the wiring is standard 220 that I have. This particular pump is compatible for 115 and 208 or 230. So all I did was just remove these 4 screws. And once I remove the 4 screws, this cover lifts up, and here is the 220. Of course, make sure the power is off. My power is completely off. I double checked it on 2 separate breakers, one from the main inside and then the other one was right here. So of course use a voltmeter, check it. I already checked it that it was completely dead, and connected my wire. Like you can see, make sure you use a weatherproof head, so you don't have any water coming in or going into the pipe or even getting in there. Just make sure get a nice one. So now you can see I just connected that right here. It's a standard fitting, and connected my ground wire right here, and the 2 hot legs come in right here. Once you do this, it's just a matter of putting everything back on. On this particular case, you cannot change the orientation. So if you want this facing the other way, you cannot do that in this particular pump. So you have to live with what you got. I think in the IntelliFlow, there's in the new models, I think it is compatible to change the face or turn it around at least. So that's one phase of it. Of course, make sure you connect your ground wire, and locate your ground wire to make sure you have a good connectivity. There's a ground pin right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and connect this guy and screw it in pretty good. And once I screw it into this ground lug, then we're going to be doing our setup on there, because what you have to do is connect this pump directly to your power supply, and then you can use this connector for the controlling, and we'll be looking at that. Okay, so this is the part that you will need if you're connecting your pool pump to the automation system. And this is nothing, it's just a connector that goes on the side of the motor like I showed you. And this gives you just a bunch of different wires at the end, and each wire can control a different speed. So this pump have 3 speeds, and one of them is a hot leg, so you can connect whatever speed that you're planning on setting your automation system to. So this is a very useful tool. Now, do you really have to have this? Not necessarily. If you have a smart system with a bunch of extra relays, then instead of relying on the self-controller on the motor that we showed earlier, you can use your automation system to control those speeds, so you don't really have to use the automation on the computer, on the motor itself. So the automation on the motor is basically just 3 speed, 1, 2, and 3 speed setup. With this, you can use your existing smart controller system and just bypass the one on the pool pump itself, and just run your motor speed through your controller. Now for this setup, depending on how many relays that you may have on your controller, the smart controller that you have, and you may need to add separate relays, because you definitely need relays to control the different speeds of the motor. So for example, if you're running speed 1 on 3500 RPM, and speed 2 on just 2000 RPM, and speed 3 on 1000 RPM, you need 3 relays, 3 independent relays, in your controller. This wire basically does, it provides 5 volt to your motor controller, which engages the speeds, So there are different, each wires, controls a different speed. there is a very good chart that I'm going to throw on the screen right now that you can see. This chart basically tells you what the speed settings could be, so, or how you can set this up. So by setting these each individual wires, you can control those different types of a speed, and then you can control your pump basically directly from the controller that might be installed inside your house, or if you have a remote connection on the pump. So let's go back to the pump and take a look. Okay, so the wiring is done, and now we're going to be programming this one. So there's two ways. If you have a constant power coming in, normally you should have constant power coming in this particular pump, and either you can use a connector to control it, the speeds from an outside source, like another outside controller, or you can have the smart built-in capability on this pump to run it, and this one have 3 timer. So what we're going to do is program it. So the first thing you need to do is set up your clock. So for you to set the clock, you just have to press and hold on to this, and you can have the 12 hours or the 24 hours. I just leave it at 12. If you want to change it, you use these, but 12 is good for me. I'm going to press it again. My time is right, so if you want to change it, you can do it with these two, and I'm just going to leave it at that. So my time is set. Now for you to program one of these, you just hold on to this, like for example number 1. So you just press number 1 one time, and this shows you my setup. So my programming 1 is set for 2600 RPM, so I can increase it or decrease it. And if you press it again, it tells you it starts at 10 in the morning. If you press it again, it tells you that programming number 1 is going to run for 2 hours, and that's it. It's going to go back to the RPM. So RPM, the start time, and the duration that programming number 1 will continue. Now for you to see number 2, just press number 2. So number 2 is set for 1200 RPM, so I can increase it or decrease it if I want. So it's going to start at 1200 RPM right after program 1, and it's going to run for 4 hours. That's just my setting. I'm going to change it later on. I'm just doing some tests right now. So it's set for 4 hours. So that's it. That's the only 2 options that you see over here, only because it's just the RPM and the duration that you're running it. It does not have a start time because it starts right after number 1. Normally number 3 is set to 0 RPM, and because I don't want the pump to come on at all, I don't want to use the third one. So if you bring the RPM down to 0, this will never trigger. So again, my number 1 timer is 2600 RPM for starting at 10 in the morning, run for 2 hours, and then 1200 RPM, run for 4 hours. So that's a total of 6 hours, and you can change it the way you want it. And this is how you easily set up your Pentair pump. And we'll do another video that I'm going to show you how you can control your pump from an outside source using this one. So I'll leave a link for that video in the description below, so do check it out. Thanks for watching.